In a normal country, one was not supposed to be celebrating uh, someone who have passed a bar council exam. But excuse me, for this edition, let us celebrate a man who moved from prison to the bar. A man who was mocked by his former mentor, who thought that as he was promoted in the position of Minister of Justice, that if the man stayed fast to him, he would have been benefiting from crumbs. And today, what Syvanus Mutanga's journey tells us about Cameroon. There is a particular kind of man that authoritarian system cannot calculate for. Not the man who shouts the loudest, not the man who is never touched, but the man who gets hit repeatedly from multiple directions and keep moving. Syvanus Mutanga was kidnapped by separatists in the northwest. His captors demanded a ransom he could not pay. He was held, and then on the last day of December, he walked out alive. Before that, in 2019, he had already been arrested and imprisoned for participating in a peaceful demonstration with MRC militants. Before that, he had served as senior official in Jean de Dieu Momo's Padec party and walked away when he decided that what the party was becoming had nothing to do with what he believed in his gate in. This week, the result of the Cameroon Bar Association entrance examination were published. Syvanus Mutanga is among the 1,008 candidates declared admissible. He is now a trainee lawyer. Take a moment with the trajectory because it tells you something that no political speech can. Who is Syvanus Mutanga? Most people outside of MRC inner circle will encounter this name for the first time today. That is worth nothing in itself. Mutanga is under 40. He is a special advisor to Maurice Kamto, the national president of the MRC. He is regarded as one of Kamto's close and loyal collaborators, not a peripheral figure, not a social media sympathizer, but someone embedded in operational architecture of the party. His political biography is not linear. He began in Padec, the party led by Jean de Dieu Momo, a man who will later become Deputy Minister of Justice under the very regime that the opposition is fighting. Mutanga left. He did not drift out. He made the decision that his conviction and the party direction were no longer compatible, and he acted on it. That kind of rupture is worth examining. In Cameroonian political culture, changing parties is almost always read through the lens of personal interest. Someone was not promoted, someone was not paid, someone was looking for a better position. What is rare and therefore more significant is the rupture motivated by ideological incompatibility. Whether that is what drove Mutanga from Padec to MRC is something only he can fully answer. But the subsequent record, imprisonment in 2019, continued proximity to Kamto, kidnapping in the Anglophone crisis zone, suggests a man who was not simply hunting for a suffer landing. The 2019 arrest, what it cost. Let us be precise about what happened in 2019. The MRC had called for peaceful demonstration. The government response was not debate. It was not counter-mobilization. It was arrest. Mutanga was among those detained, one of the dozen of MRC members who spent time in custody for the act of marching. In most functional democracy, this sentence would be self-evidently absurd. A man in prison for walking in the streets, but in political suppression is so normalized that it's barely registered as news anymore. You have to slow down and name it for what it is. The state using incarceration to punish peaceful political participation. That is not law enforcement. That is intimidation infrastructure. Mutanga paid the price. He did not leave the party afterward. He did not recalibrate towards a safer form of engagement. He remained. That is data. What does it tell us? It tells us that for a certain generation of MRC militants, Those who are under 40, who joined knowing full well what the risks were, the commitment is not performative, it is structural. It is built into how they understand themselves as political actors. This matter for how long, for how we rate the MRC current situation. A party navigating internal tensions, external attacks on its legitimacy, and an opposition ecosystem that often consumes itself before it can confront the regime. Within that turbulence, the mutangas of the party are the stabilizing weight. About his kidnapped in Norway's The Geometry of Crisis. The kidnapping episode requires its own analytical frame. Mutangas was traveling to visit his wife family in the Northwest, in the heart of the Anglophone crisis zone. When he was adopted by separatist fighters, a ransom was demanded. He could not pay it. He was released on December the 31st, in circumstances described as near miraculous. Let us hold several things at once here. First, Mutanga is an MRC militant. The MRC, under Maurice Kamto, has consistently taken a political position that the Anglophone crisis requires a negotiated solution, not military suppression, not secession, but genuine federalist dialogue. Kamto himself has paid a personal price for this position, having been imprisoned in that part because of his political posture on the crisis. Yet, here is one of Kamto's closest advisors taken hostage by the very armed group whose grievances the MRC has politically acknowledged. A conflict that does not respect the distinction between those who defend Anglophone politically and those who hold guns. Second, the ransom demand and Mutanga's inability to pay it tells you about the social profile of MRC leadership. This is not a party funded by business oligarchs heading their bet. These are men and women of relative modest means, navigate danger without the financial caution that political risks usually require in this country. Third, the release. We are not told how it happened. Quasi-miraculous is the word used. In a conflict zone where most kidnapping outcomes are determined by money or connection, all release without ransom is either a humanitarian gesture, rare in that theater of operation, or the product of quiet negotiation we are not told about. Either way, Mutanga came out alive and resumed his life. The bar exam, why this matters beyond the individual. The Cameroon Bar Association entrance examination is not easy. Over 1,000 candidates were declared admissible for what is typically a far larger pool of applicants. The process is competitive, technically demanding, and largely meritocratic in its formal structure. Whatever the border dysfunction of Cameroonian institutions, Mutanga passed. Now let us think about what this means structurally, not just biologically. The MRC has long argued that Cameroon needs not just a change of personnel at the top, but a transformation of the institution fabric of the country. The judiciary, the bar, the civil society, the civil service, the security apparatus. You cannot build a state of law with the same human architecture that was designed to prevent one. When a committed MRC militant enters the legal profession, he does not stop being a political actor. He becomes a different kind of political actor. An MRC aligned lawyer in Cameroon is not an abstraction. It is a man who can stand in a courtroom, who can represent a detained activist, who can file a brief challenging an unconstitutional detention, who knows the terrain from the inside. The 2019 arrest produced, among other things, a generation of MRC members who understand the Cameroonian judicial system, not from textbook, but from cell. Some of those people became more radicalized. Others and Mutanga appeared to be in the category became more strategic. They decided to learn the system's language in order to fight on its own ground. That is a different kind of resistance, less visible, more durable. The generation question. Mutanga is under 40. The detail is not incidental. It is the central political fact of the story. Cameroon has been governed by the same man since 1982. The generation that is now between 30 to 45 years old has known nothing else but the same person. They were born into this system. They were educated within it. They entered the job market, shaped it, and it is significant number of them have decided consciously and at personal cost to work towards dismantling it. This is the generation that makes regime nervous, not because they are violent, but because they are patient and they are capable. They are not asking for a seat at the existing table. They are building the argument, the legal dossier, the organizational capacity for a different table entirely. The PADEC to MRC trajectory is also generationally legible. Jean de Dieu Momo, who led PADEC before becoming a government minister, represents the older pattern of Cameroonian opposition. The party as a bargaining chip, the political position as a negotiating posture, and the eventual accommodation with power as the implicit horizon. Mutanga look at the horizon and walk away from it. The choice made before he was imprisoned, before he was kidnapped, and before he passed the bar is the thorough line of the story. Cameroon does not have a shortage of smart people. It has a shortage of people willing to absorb the cost of principle over time. Syvanus Mutanga is not a symbol. He is a case study of what it looks like to build a political biography in conditions of active hostility states, repression on one side, armed conflict on the other, institutional dysfunction everywhere and still arrive somewhere. He is now a trainee lawyer. In a year or two, if he completes his population, he will be a fully qualified member of the bar of the Cameroon Bar. What he does with that credential will be worth watching, because in a country where the courts have been used to imprison the people who want to reform them, having reformers inside the court is not a small thing. It is, in fact, exactly the kind of long game that changes country. That is what patient politics look like, and that is what this channel is here to document. African political analysis without filter. Subscribe, ring the bell, share with someone who thinks like you. Thanks for watching. I've been Mayor Cyril, giving you appointment for some other time. Bye-bye.